but The Rock is cooking.
Recording live from 2, maybe 3 locations. This is Past the Rock. I'm Patrick, and this week I am joined by Jacob, aka Bethke. God.
I'm fucking pumped.
And potentially the spirit of Caesar is around here somewhere.
He might linger in and out. There are some rumors and reports to say that he was murdered. There's some reports to say that he's just gone insane since the final on Monday. We don't know.
Yeah, so obviously a lot to get to. But we're going to start. I meant to do this right after I said hello. Probably the biggest thing to talk about this week, at least in my brain. So yeah, we got the news. Was that yesterday? Last night?
We're hemorrhaging legends these last couple of weeks, bro.
The passing of Willie Mays, which obviously I'm the quote unquote baseball guy here, so it's incumbent on me to try to bring to you guys what that actually means. Willie Mays is like the last of the legends. The guy, the last of the guys who were playing in black and white. The
guy's not using steroids.
I mean, sure. There's probably a little gap between, and who knows what the hell they were using. Some greenies.
When did Willie Mays retire? Because I assume that the steroids era started in whenever the
late
'70s were together.
Mid '70s, maybe.
When were the Bash Bros together?
That's the '80s, '90s. Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I assume the Bash Brothers is where it all starts. Particular era.
I mean, that's where the peak starts generating for sure. But anyways, yeah, Willie Mays. You talk about the all-time greats of Ruth, DiMaggio, is right up there with everybody. One of the first actual 5-tool guys that I think from back then could still come in and be great today. He was just good at everything. Mickey Mantle was right there before he hurt his knee. I think I've heard that Mickey Mantle was probably the fastest ever recorded at the time, home to first before he hurt his knee. And then obviously that messes with some things. But there was a time New York had Willie Mays, Mickey Mantle, and oh my God, what's his name? The Duke. I can't remember his real name. Playing center for the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Is that when they had Sandy Koufax?
There's going to be some overlap there for sure. Yeah, and he's now the oldest living kind of legend, but less public for the MLB as far as post career. Sandy Koufax, they don't.
I wouldn't even know who Sandy Koufax was if it wasn't for Adam Sandler.
Yeah, he's I believe he's like 88, so he's up there as well. He was great, but not as much of a public face of the game, at least throughout my life, as Willie Mays was. So with Mays passing, that really does feel like kind of the end of that whole era, even with obviously some guys still alive. Willie Mays, the author of the over-the-shoulder catch that you've all seen and might not even know that you've seen it because it's put in every.
That's probably it.
It's put in every pop culture baseball reference. It's everywhere.
That's the only. Yeah, that's pretty much it. That'd be the furthest extent of my. Like, I knew the home run list thing. I knew he was a part. I knew he was on.
Yeah, and he's just everywhere. His name is in all the record books all over the place.
But I think by the time I get to baseball, we're having just weird conversations about home run data, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that dominated a period there, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's like my intro to baseball. Essentially, is that whole era.
So yeah, not to belabor it, not to beat you guys down with too much, but just say it's obviously sad, but at the same time, it's another excuse to celebrate the legend one more time and be happy that we've got this American game.
Yeah,
and from that we're gonna transition into the building of something else now in America, which is the U.S. national cricket team.
Well, but we need to talk about the origins of potentially both of these sports.
Yeah, if you wanna give us your little
I
and
just I just
and we should preface this by saying the official MLB story of how baseball is created is a lie, and it's all marketing,
yes,
and none of that is
yes.
true. The Abner Doubleday
It's really
nonsense,
none of it.
none of that's true.
So I have a different understanding, but so continue.
Everything that the MLB purports and that's in the Baseball Hall of Fame for the creation of baseball is something that they concocted.
They're fabric. Okay, no,
Yeah.
and that's fair because essentially
And to be
why
fair,
both
because no one knows really is the answer. So
and no, and I'm not taking this as a light thing because actually it's something I've studied quite seriously, and it's something I care a lot about with basketball. Because I think it's interesting, like how the fuck did we get to a point where there's athletes making this much money playing kids games, right? Like, part of you has to wonder the historical context of how these things happen, right? So for me, as I'm searching through the answers for the NBA, I find a lot of the interesting historical facts about other sports. And one of the ones that I've kind of regurgitated a few times, but I think is interesting, is basketball is the only one that we actually kind of 100% know and can prove the history of
somebody
origins.
actually wrote it down.
Well, it was modern history, and it was more or less an assignment from a school, right? You're talking about the YMCA school in Springfield handled physical education as much as they handled I think they were teaching secretaries and PE directors is essentially what they were for YMCA's, right?
This
That's what they
is
were doing there
Illinois,
at the school. This was in Springfield, Massachusetts,
Massachusetts.
where the Hall of Fame is now. They anyway, they were trying to figure out a winter sport that they could play that wasn't too physical. That kind of it was check all these little boxes, right? A guy named Luther Gulick, who is essentially in charge of the YMCA, has a class where it's just all of the people who work for him brainstorming these ideas. A bunch of people fail. Naismith essentially comes up with this perfect game in his head, but then they're like, "All right, Naismith, go fucking try it out, you dumbass." Naismith fails for like 2 weeks before finally having a couple of things click in his head and then understanding essentially the novelty of tossing the ball at a hoop is unique and can build on something, right? And that's how basketball starts. That is not the case for a lot of people. And there's even basketball gets a little one because there's Mesopotamian America where they had a similar version of it, but it actually doesn't look anything like it once you've seen it. It's actually more rugby soccer adjacent, right?
Which
It
I mean,
just happens.
everything is sort of
Exactly.
because
In
it's all
rugby,
field position and yeah,
soccer allegedly starts with the Han
possession.
Dynasty, and people have been back and forth. Is it were they kicking heads around? Were they not kicking heads around? That's kind of always been a bit of speculation, I think. But essentially, the Han Dynasty, which is old as fuck, is where soccer starts. Then rugby derives from that. Football derives from rugby. Anyway, get all to this. Admiral Doubleday allegedly, if you can believe the story, if there's any shred of truth to the story, this is how it would be true. Abner Doubleday, I believe, was in the military, therefore would have been stationed overseas in England, or he was an Englishman, I can't remember. But essentially, in my opinion, the only way that he could have done this, he could have brought this game to America, could have been the founder, was he would have taken the English game of rounders and he would have modified it, not necessarily by choice, but because he probably just didn't remember the game correctly. And then over the time, we would have changed it just like we did basketball. Naismith created a game far different from what we watch every day now. But the bones were there. So I show you this clip, this short little clip of a few people, probably out in fucking Wales, because this looks like BFE England, playing rounders.
No ball.
Did you like that ending?
Nice contact. I was hoping she would at least scratch the surface of the contact, so that worked out.
Oh yeah, so that's rounders essentially, and of course the British showing us why they're the apex of athletics in all of the world and always have been with that video there as well. So that was my little explanation of rounders. I just think it's an interesting thing. Sorry to derail too much.
No, and I think it's
Um,
interesting and it's worth pointing out. And what I would say about baseball is it sounds more about, from everything that I know about it or that I've read, is that it's more just like an amalgamation of like a bunch of different hometown games that are being played with sticks and balls
mhm.
in the colonies. And yeah,
Well, and you also look at that Rounders game. Was that crazy? It was a very simple. It was basically an infield, right? Is an
right.
infield and a pitcher is essentially what Rounders was. And so, like, it really doesn't show you that this, like, they're all very simple games at the start. So it's just interesting. Little weird thing. Um, History is often weird and has these little forks in the road.
Yeah, and we might potentially be at one of those currently for something that hasn't been big in this country as far as the mainstream.
Ever.
Um, which again, cricket. As I mentioned before we went into that little history lesson there. The U.S. national cricket team. So I'm only just now learning about cricket. Uh,
I just Googler tells me that it's 100 years older allegedly than Rounders.
yes, and it's probably worth mentioning here that the version of cricket that's currently the most popular, this World Cup that we're currently in, is a shortened version of the sport meant to be able to be played in 3 hours.
Yes, they are long games.
So there's obviously there's the kind that don't have any kind of time limit. There's the kind that's been designed to be played in a single day, but this version uh, designed to only be played for 3 hours at a time. Uh,
Which is
Picked
ideal.
up,
Like
yeah.
even
I mean,
baseball just had to reimagine
it's
this.
the
You know what I
most
mean?
marketable version of it. Yes,
You
um,
got to.
started
There's a shot clock for a reason. There's play clocks for a reason.
started in the early 2000s. It's what they call 2020, but you'll see it stylized as T20.
Okay.
I don't quite remember what it all means. It means something. I'm just now learning the rules of the game. But the reason this all came about, the reason I am inspired and interest peaked, was that the U.S. beat Pakistan.
It's a big dub.
Which, yeah, that's not something that's ever happened before. Maybe one of the greatest upsets in sports history, honestly.
Mhm.
The only reason that we're playing is because we're hosting this tournament, which is just down the road from us, or it was a couple of times. Uh, I don't know if all the events are around here or if it's split up through the whole country, but
I didn't even know that.
tickets were ridiculous from what everything I've heard and read. So
Well, we have a very, very strong Indian
yeah, and
uh,
that's
and probably Pakistani
exactly
base here.
that's a thing that I don't know if a lot of people know that about. You know, you think Texas, you might not think that's the market, but the thing about DFW specifically is that it is a
And Houston.
transplant in Houston, but
So then
DFW.
you get,
I was gonna say DFW specifically is how big of a transplant
but for
city
something
it
like that, I
is.
would expect a lot of people to come up too. So yeah, I would
Yeah,
expect it all to stay.
and that's just to say that we have pockets of so many different cultures that you wouldn't even think about when you hear Texas. Um, I remember the first time I saw anyone even play cricket was at right outside of UTA. There's just a bunch of people playing it in a field.
Because UTA
Um,
is a hell of a school for kind of translating into a lot of tech jobs.
yeah, and so yeah, it's cool that it's getting a chance to be big on the main stage. And so by beating Pakistan, and then based on the other results in the qualifying rounds, we've moved into what they call the Super Eight, which is the Elite Eight of this Cup tournament, which qualifies us automatically for 2026. So this kind of gives us a chance to maybe turn this into something. I don't see it passing what we would call the Big Four. I could maybe see it passing MLS popularity in parts of the country for sure.
Well, if anything, I think it just shows how much the population of India spiking over the last however many decades has shown up in a lot
Centuries.
of places, otherwise. I mean, honestly, especially in America, and you have a few generations removed from the immigration over here, probably at this point for a lot of these people. When I saw the list here, when this was getting, making news, I was seeing tweets that a lot of these guys are just fucking like tech developers that are
Yeah,
just
some
doing
of them have actual jobs. Yeah.
it.
Which is cool.
So,
That actually helps. I think really helps build into people wanting to watch it.
mhm.
And we did also. It's worth noting we just got our first. They started like a super league of cricket a couple years ago, and we have a team in Dallas. Um, and if I remember, I'm trying to remember. It wasn't long ago. I think it was the city of Allen turned down the plan to build this stadium because
Oh, but don't worry, we're gonna.
they were worried about the noise. It
Yeah,
was either
okay.
McKinney or Allen.
Yeah, Allen's worried about building a
It
stadium.
might have been
They built
McKinney. I can't remember exactly who it was. It was
a
someone over
city
there.
famous for building a football stadium. They had to destroy and
So
rebuild.
we've converted the old Grand Prairie Air Hogs baseball stadium into a cricket
Oh, is that what
facility.
it is?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Um, so yeah, that's kind of cool. I'm learning the rules now, starting to watch it, and I hope it's not another highlight. I hope it survives. And I think it could because it's honestly a pretty simple game. Once you sit down, I would watch the 4-minute video to understand how scoring works, and you can just see. You understand why it could take all day, but I'm
My
glad they've
biggest
come up with
question,
this version of this game to make it more consumable.
my biggest question to this in the larger sports world is: does this start to impact the NFL at all? And the only reason I say that to the NFL's extent is because now that we have more options, now that we have more streaming abilities, now that we have all this, the more choice of fandom than ever. And as we've become a less Caucasian specific
Mhm.
and less American, um, you know, whatever you want to call that version of that patriotic America only mentality, I don't know that that really holds up in younger generations as much, maybe in certain parts of the country, but not necessarily as a whole. So I do wonder, we've seen basketball take a massive spike because of millennials and Gen Z. We've seen hockey start to take a different interest. And I'm not exactly sure who to put that credit to, but it is an interesting concept to me that we're looking at a sport that isn't necessarily American by any means, but isn't far away from what football provides and kind of has a good little segue there for both fans. Um, wrestling is in such a bigger world than it used to be. There's just baseball has figured out a way to make their games more fast and watchable. I know the NFL is still a conglomerate. I know what it is, but I'm wondering if all of these little things, even motorsports, X Games, all these things have gotten slowly but surely bigger because WNBA. I mean, even that has just been
Yeah,
this like
and of all
niche.
these of the ones that you've listed, the W I think is the only one that at least right now shows traction of really supplanting it. Not even really supplanting, but taking some more real market share. I think stuff like X Games and even NASCAR, they've reached their peaks and found their niche
Yeah,
audiences. Um,
probably so. At least with NASCAR, I think I wouldn't rule out X Games because I think younger kids still. You get older. I mean, do you see the little kid who just did like 3 900s in a row?
yeah, and I think you'll always
What?
have that that subculture, but I don't know that it's gonna get back into the mainstream the way it ever was back then. It could, but
But I guess what I'm saying is it all of these together forming like Voltron to slowly but surely start to take away from the American, the thick red-blooded American audience. I'm
maybe
curious about
someday we might see it. But I think the ratings will show you right now that football is still
it.
far
Yeah.
and away
Well,
the
and it's also
king.
ratings are cooked for football. Like we don't talk enough about the fact that football can always dominate ratings when there's so few fucking games and
But
it's
they're
always on the same day.
but now they're spreading that out. It's still where they're winning those nights too. You know what I mean? So they own Monday, Thursday, Sunday, and then for a few weeks of the year, Saturday.
But
Uh,
again, it's because there's finite games. They play 17
yes,
total in a season.
yeah, they're
So
about
even
to,
if you're
and it's
forcing
about
me
to
to
be
watch that,
18. So
so we'll see if they keep doing that. Maybe
the
that also
I
impacts
think
it.
I think but I think what you could see is kind of to your point is that kids having options and parents having more options to give their kids than football eventually hurts the professional football product whenever there's not the top athletes anymore. So
Well, again, it's always come back to the NFL sucks at getting non-American fans to stay and be committed for a long time.
well,
Like
it's kind of a
it,
dumb game. I mean, I like it, but
it
outside of a couple positions, like you can be a pro football player, but I couldn't stick you in any other sport because you don't even understand the game that you're playing. You're just an athlete, and that's the only sport where I feel like you can get away with being just an athlete.
Well, and it's just like how many Americans, especially in the South, are antagonistic to soccer. The exact same opinion is felt elsewhere towards football, right? Because
Maybe,
but I mean, there's similar things, right? Like a lot of our, especially Southern Americans, are obsessed with a different version of reality. Therefore, they don't think soccer belongs in that reality, right? I mean, that's true though. They're very adamant. I jokingly called soccer kickball, but that's just being an asshole. I'm wearing a soccer jersey right now. They do that seriously. Like they literally think it's just a child sport only. You go over to a foreign country and they think we're complete fucking idiots for ramming each other's brains into oblivion, and they're right. But like at the end of the day, it's just I think that there's
but then they all love rugby, so
yeah, I know, yeah, you have fucking rugby. So that's the funny parts of this. I guess that's always going to be the issue is that there's going to be red-blooded Americans for as long as there's a red-blooded America.
I mean, yeah. So that's kind of my thought was as long as the product doesn't slip too much, as long as you have enough of the proper skill position players still coming out to make the game worth watching, it shouldn't be an issue. I think Cuban. I think you could. I think Cuban was right when he was talking about the NFL if you're looking at it from a far enough away lens, but I don't think he was. He seemed to underestimate how giant the iceberg is that you're trying to wear down or slow down there.
Yeah, I agree, and yeah. I mean, it's an interesting one, and we'll see. I also think college football is about to have a beautiful renaissance in a way. I know a lot of people are very negative.
I mean, if you're a fan of a big school like I am, it's great. Like I don't care.
Right.
This doesn't hurt me at all.
I think the smaller schools, it sucks for them. I'm gonna feel so bad for the first team that signs. No, Mean Green, you better believe in yourself to be who you've always been. Don't try to be something you're not now. Do not get into bed with hedge fund people. Please, for the love of God.
Well,
you're not going to do it.
They're almost cooked for ever getting. They were already close to cooked for ever getting like a really good player, but it's gonna be really tough now.
And even when we had like a little bit more fair ground, we couldn't even get past SMU at their worst.
when their football program was still like shut down.
Like, bro, no, there was years where we would be so fucking good and SMU would be so trash and they'd still kick our ass, bro. Like that shit right there basically made me never want to put money into UNT football like ever. Like, yes, I love it. 3 stars, 2-star, 4 stars even that have to transfer, come to UNT. Enjoy playing for the Mean Green. Get a scholarship. I'm not chasing after 5-star fuckboys with the Mean Green though. It ain't happening.
No, you're hoping to get someone who should have been a 5 but is listed as a 3, and then you get 1 or 2 years from them before they go to Alabama or Texas. Now, that's at the game now.
Really, we used to be one of those.
You're trying to be a portal. You're trying to be the portal.
Yeah, we were good at the other thing because we had so many DFW kids. We were good at, you went to Oklahoma but couldn't play?
Yeah, come home. You're comfortable
that was really our bag for a while there.
All right. Well, I don't even know how we got into all that. I'm just gonna awkward. Yeah, cricket. You're right. Awkward transition. Just to mention that Stanley Cup Finals are still going. The Florida Panthers won the first 3 games. Edmonton won Game 4 like 8-1 or something stupid like that. And then last night, Edmonton's up 4-1. Florida brings it back to 4-3 in the third. And then they couldn't quite get it done. I saw one of the craziest things I've ever seen. With Kachuk, I think it was Kachuk, dives and saves an empty net goal from going in with the Panthers still just down 1. But like full body, like skates as hard as he can, full body, gets down there, dives barely across the line, saves it, and saves it right to fucking Connor McDavid, who's just like, okay, shoot it in.
Oh, damn. Well, I mean, A for effort. You might get a ring out of it.
It was cool.
That's nice.
But yeah, that series will be over by the time we get back together. So either Florida will not blow a 3-0 lead and they'll win the cup, or we'll have something really crazy to talk about come next week if Edmonton pulls it off, because that would be one of the wildest things in sports, both for the comeback and for the Canadian team
I'm personally rooting for the Edmonton Oilers because I think it's weird as fuck for the South to be dominating hockey, except for the Dallas Stars. I am absolutely going to use this as an
We're around.
excuse.
We're competitive.
I'm also going to use this as an excuse to make up for the Stars fuck up. Obviously, we lost the champs. What are we gonna do? They're a team of destiny. Gotta love that. Always good to pull that one out.
No, the good thing about our position is either we lost to the champs or we lost to someone who lost to the champs. Like, what were we? You know.
And I also want to say, I don't think that we should count Dallas as the South anymore because the South doesn't even really want us that much. Like, they basically think we're Yankees.
DFW is weird, man. People hear Texas and they immediately think like Western or Southern, but they don't always. No one ever knows what DFW is, which is just one giant concrete.
It's like
it's a strip mall with a couple airports.
It's eventually going to look a lot like Los Angeles, but without the pretty parts. It's just going to be seas of houses as far as the eye can see.
Unless we build a lot more man-made lakes somewhere in the vicinity of the skyline.
Well, the good news is our fault lines will probably be better, but maybe not also because we have dry, shitty ground. So who knows? Who's got it worse? We'll see.
That's our brief hockey talk. We'll do a quick check-in on the Rangers. It's bad. That's about it. We're not going to talk about more than that because it's just
the Mavericks. Shout out to the Mavericks for hiding the fact that the Mets beat the fucking brakes off the Rangers the other night.
Was that 14-2?
Yeah, I think so. And that was what 4 days after getting beaten 14-1 or something like that.
It's not going well. We
Wyatt
did get Wyatt Langford's first home run over the wall, and then the bullpen decided this was going to be one of those games they aren't really good.
That's crazy, bro. That shit is so crazy because it was Kirby and Robertson last night too.
And Robertson, we should mention actually, when we played against the Dodgers, what Robertson did, which was
there was hope with 2 out of 3 games in LA.
2 straight nights, back to back in the ninth. He strikes out 3 of the best hitters in baseball. That is insane.
And then
I don't know if it's ever been done before. Like I have no idea. That'd be a tough one to go back and check. I guess I could try. But
and then just one long wet fart in Seattle for 3 games.
And then this team obviously we're still trying to get everybody back. We've been talking about it all year, and they're still not all back. So
yeah, I mean at this point
there's a chance. It's just they're gonna have to play their asses off the second half of the season.
Feels like a complete fucking long shot to even make the playoffs at this point. I know it's not that out of
It's not that out
this
of the
team
picture,
sucks.
but it's not trending in a way. It's trending in an even worse direction as of this week.
Yes, dude. It's trending in a direction where I'm like, are we about to get like a top 5 pick next year? What the fuck?
But hey,
dude? This sucks.
World Series champion Texas Rangers.
I don't like the Bochy. I don't like this Bochy thing. Are we gonna win the title next year and then? Like, is this just the formula now?
Right.
He's what we are.
They're gonna talk about him like they talk about the Spurs, trying to discredit it. Couldn't do it back-to-back years though. Like, oh, okay, sorry.
Which, just like the Spurs, is equally frustrating and confusing.
Well, I don't know.
It was for the Spurs. I understand it better because I just understand the league better. But like, at the same time, I'm just like, how can you be so good and yet not this? Like, how do you not do it at least once?
Injuries at certain times. Yeah, you never know. But anyways.
It is very interesting. Maybe we get Josh Young back this season. Is that even a foregone conclusion?
Dude, at this point, I'll wait till I see him.
Because Evan's gone. They haven't. I don't think they said it officially, but I already kind of feel like Evan's done for the season.
Just don't know. Who knows? And there are some decisions that'll be made depending on what the record is at the time.
Yeah, dude.
If
we going to keep Molly, do we just trade that dude before he even plays for us?
Well, probably not. We probably want to see what might be there if you have him. But I just mean for if we're in a race and Evan's good to go, then he's coming back. If we're not in the race and Evan's good to go, maybe he doesn't come back. Maybe you just let him hang out and chill out a little bit.
The good news about this, though, I think long term, I think that it's good because I think there's no way, as much as I appreciate his effort and his time as a Ranger, I think there's no way that they keep Leody Taveras moving forward.
I don't know, man.
I just don't think you can keep that.
He's really good, just not always at the
But the
most
bat
opportune
is
times.
his bat being so atrocious just shows way worse when we're in this state. And I know it's not his job. I understand he's a good
Right.
defensive
That's and
player.
yeah, that's you're kind
But
of
god
yeah.
damn it, bro. He's so fucking useless on offense, man.
Well, and I mean, it's a combination of it's going to be more difficult when you don't have the other guys in there because
Yeah.
then
But even when they were, man, like Leone was good for a every now and again change of pace play. It was not there was no consistency to that offense.
I don't know. He's also still pretty damn young, and that's another thing that you got to remember. He's technically an older guy on the team, probably, but he's still pretty young.
And we're probably not in a position to upgrade players next year either, unfortunately.
No, we're not. Well, I don't know. You know, who knows what's going to happen with TV money next year. We might actually spend some this offseason, but on paper, most things look pretty good here, so I'm not too upset. We got struck by a bunch of injuries that didn't get us last year, so
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with living like that. It's a nice, for me, there's little things like it's really at this point, I'm almost never looking at anything but what Wyatt did. And I don't mean to put pressure on the kid, but at this point, what else
no,
is
there's some. I mean,
if
yeah,
not for,
there's some young pitchers that I definitely want to
Yeah.
keep seeing. What they might have.
what's his name? Starts last.
Oh, Uribe,
Uribe. Urena?
No, not. Yeah.
Hey, keep pitching like that, we'll know it by heart. So that's what I'm saying. It's little. There are little things.
Yeah, I'd like to see Jack Leiter come back up at least one more time this year at the end of the year
I
and
don't know
see.
about that one, but sure.
I just want to see. I want to see what the progress is. You know,
I feel you.
I wanna see the
I wanna
difference.
Kumar Rocker too,
'Cause
but I don't know if that's a
it's-
good idea.
If we don't ever see it, then I'd rather just see it and be like, all right, let's move on.
Cool.
Than
Yeah.
not
No, I
see it.
Yeah.
Which
and it is an
sometimes
interesting-
people say that with quarterbacks, and I've definitely done that before. But then every time you see them, you're like, that's why we didn't see them. So
You're more liable to get stuck with a quarterback too. I feel like sometimes, whereas pitching, we get options.
Yes, you got a whole staff.
So I think that makes it easier to do what you're saying too. Because like I said, you get stuck in the Zach Wilson zone where it's
But
like,
man,
I
how
like
great
Zach
how
Wilson,
great
but
would it
he's
be
stuck.
to have like a 3 QB rotation? No one's allowed to start 2 games in a row.
I know that there's been some coaches in the past who have tried that.
It would be absolutely hilarious. No, it's like league mandated. You have to. So everyone's gotta run a Kellen Mond out there every once in a while. And
This is just the last amendment to Jerry Jones before he dies. He writes in this new rule so we can't pay quarterbacks $500 million anymore, that they all have to split the money.
That'll be our baseball and football talk for the day. So I guess now it's time to get to the main stuff, the big meat. That's not what I meant to say. You know what I mean.
Drake is way too far away now to have so many other things to do. But
There you go.
Just better late than never.
So yeah, we'll go ahead and pass this rock on to Bethke, who can tell us about Banner 18.
All right, we will get to that, man. Right now, there is a little bit of that. I mean, officially now, Luka is not ever going to be better than Michael Jordan, so that's unfortunate.
Yeah, you can't
nothing you can do
possibly.
now. Nothing you can do. So now that that's out of the way, it is Title 18 for the Beantown Boys. The last time it was won, you see that those couple handsome gentlemen on Sports Illustrated right there? That's 16 years ago. I got that illustrated
Jesus
issue.
Christ.
I know that because the broadcast was happy to tell us a billion times that it was exactly 16 years since the last time the Celtics had won a title from when they won it this year, which is cool. I mean, if you like numerology, you took a win that round. For most of us, though, the Beantown Boys are not the most popular brand. I think what's funny about the Beantown Boys is the Lakers are very hated, right? They're attention grabbers, even when they don't deserve it, all that stuff, right? But it almost feels like people will start to root for the Lakers a little bit more in championship rounds with less options than Boston. Because once it's Boston, everyone just comes together and is like, fuck that team specifically. I've always thought that's interesting.
I think, at least for our generation, that all comes from when all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Boston went from a town of no one can win anything to we're gonna always win and we're gonna be in every title game. And that one stupid kid's been to like 30 parades already, and he's only like 15 years old or whatever. So I think that that's where a lot of that comes from our era.
I agree because when you talk about it,
because before it all started, the Patriots were like, "Oh, this is kind of a nice upstart team that's never done anything." The Red Sox was like, "Oh, they haven't won in a long time.
Pull off a miracle to end the Bambino curse."
Although it's funny because I was listening to a podcast where a guy who grew up as an Indians fan was like, I never understood that because they were always in the playoffs. My team fucking sucked.
I agree. As the logo on your hat and shirt says, that was a lot of my experience.
What's more tortured? Yeah, that's a tough debate. But I think that's where a lot of the hate comes from. But also it's Boston, and everyone knows that it's racist and terrible and evil, and unless we're talking revolutionary times, then it's a great city, it's a great town.
No, it's so funny, man, because yes, Boston deserves a ton of shit for how they handled the Celtics in the 60s. And then the 80s, I don't know how much of that was true, how much of that was just the race war that was sort of being pitted against each other because of the NBA understanding that Bird versus Magic was such an interesting thing that sort of mirrored what was happening in America with the Lakers and the Celtics at the time. So yeah, I mean, ultimately,
did we last week talk about the Larry Bird side note?
Which side note?
That we learned that he smokes Newports.
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think we talked about that. Yeah, Larry.
Just add another layer into this.
Hey, look, he might be the hick from French Lick, but just like Luka Doncic, man, you can adapt to the culture. You know what I'm saying?
That was what Mark Jackson and Reggie Miller talking about that. I love that they saw him. They said they saw him sitting in the shower just smoking a pack of Newports, and they just it threw him off. They couldn't even play that night.
Dude, Larry's one of the craziest legends there is, man. Like, probably one of the more interesting ones as far as just that is a normal dude who happens to be one of the most famous and talented basketball players to ever play.
Always funny to point out that when everyone's like, yeah, man, he was hands down the best 3-point shooter of the era. You're like, oh, I bet he shot just a ton of threes, right? He averaged 0.8 a game. It's probably like 1.3 or something. It's low. Well, yeah, it's just the era.
You couldn't shoot then.
No, yeah.
They wouldn't let you.
It's just funny.
Even if you're a Bird. But he was very pure as a shooter, and then he won the contest.
Wearing the jacket, he was obviously a good shooter. I'm not actually taking away. It's just a funny thing. Like when you're talking about like, oh, the 1903 home run king hit 12 home runs.
Exactly. It is similar to that. Honestly, now that we talk about that Tony Hawk shit, it's crazy. You know what I mean? Talk about Tony Hawk took him forever to get 900, and some 8-year-old gets 3 in a row. Oh man, times are different. Tony Hawk was skating against plumbers. Anyway,
he was a plumber essentially. I mean,
but he was a prodigy. So, but
I
anyway,
mean, he was really good for people who didn't get to grow up in like a school teaching them how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. He actually there's a cool ass Tony Hawk documentary. I forget who has it, but go watch that if y'all can. Even if you don't like skateboarding, it's just interesting. Most of all time for the Beantown Boys, number 18.
Well, wait. Does the in-season tournament trophy added to the 17 give the Lakers a claim?
So, I'm going to go ahead and take that away from the Lakers because I'm going to let them keep the Minneapolis titles, unlike most Boston fans who are basically like, every time we have this conversation, the Boston fans they're very, there's a reason why they take off their green cap and put on a red and white one. You know what I mean? Because like they only know a few lines and they can just repeat it over and over again. And it's like, yes, I agree. But am I going to take the fucking Philadelphia Warriors title away from Golden State?
Can I take away the Bill Russell titles where he was the only good basketball player on the planet playing professional basketball?
Or when he used to, or when he won you guys that many titles and you rewarded him by shitting in his bed and burning his house down?
Yeah.
I think that's also pretty notable. So yeah, it's just one of those things where it's a funny thing, obviously, with Lakers Celtics rivalry. It's just a fun thing for us to watch on the outside while they have their little cat fight. But it's also fun because it adds more spice to whatever the Lakers do now that they have more pressure on them to tie this and then take it back over within however long it might take.
Which right now, if you're just asking me, doesn't look like they're going to be catching up anytime soon. It's more likely the Celtics are going to put up 2 or 3 more before the Lakers grab another one. But
Yeah, I think the Lakers need to be hoping that they just can minimize the damage to the current situation more
they're
than
like, how do
add to their
we?
own.
They're like, how do we sign LeBron and trade him for everyone else's first round picks?
So yeah, I think at this point you're right. They're probably more hoping that there's only one title they got to catch up to in the next decade than multiple.
Yeah. Which,
Uh,
it's, and we'll get to this with the Mavs thing also. People love to talk about the team that won, they're gonna win a million, and the team that lost, they'll be right back. And it's like neither one of these teams may be back for 20 years, so who knows?
Yeah, and we have to remember that there's way different financial restrictions that are about to happen. The Boston Celtics have next year to win another title, but then this group will not be able to stay together. They will not be able to keep all 5 of their starters as currently constructed. Next year, they'll have everybody on the books, and it's going to be high pressure. They'll be deeper than Denver was this season to compete for a repeat. So
I think the
it makes
Mavs
more
the Mavs are
sense.
in a similar spot, right? Where next year they have pretty much the full team coming back, and then after that they got decisions to make.
I'll save the Mavs stuff for later, but yes, essentially to tease it, the Mavs have an interesting set of options. But for the Celtics, you're pretty much rolling this team back out next year, and you're trying like a motherfucker to win back to back because most likely you're going to have to make an impossible decision to destroy this team in the third season.
Well, yeah, I mean, by year 3, Wemby's got a full 10 years. He's got his own Bill Russell run coming, so
I mean, yeah, obviously you're going to have competition no matter what you do, but financially, the Celtics are about to be fucked. Even if they can pay the bill, they're probably not going to be able to pay the bill, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Jaylen Brown is your finals MVP. I'm very happy to see Jaylen Brown do this. Last week, I gushed pretty hard about his development, so I won't do that again. But ultimately, you're going to see a lot of stuff. I think he's had one of the worst PERs of anybody to win the finals MVP. Tatum led in all of the other statistical counting categories, or at least the big 3 categories. So there's going to be some hate.
Yeah, but Tatum's just the biggest corn dog in the world, so
For Tatum, I thought he was going to win Finals MVP. I thought he played the best and the most important in Game 5. However, I think that it was more than fair for Jaylen Brown to get the reward for the full extent of the playoff run and the forced
which
4
and
games.
that's how hockey does theirs. It's a full playoff award, but it pretty much always goes to someone who's team won, obviously, and I like that better than
The NBA is usually simpler, but sometimes you get this kind of
the
situation.
NBA defines theirs as a Finals MVP, whereas hockey's is not defined that way, so it's a little bit.
But it's not always rewarded that way either. Obviously Iguodala won it, and it was taken probably too literal.
That's that is a nuts one. He did have some really pivotal plays for sure.
But really, all he did was just he kept LeBron to average 40 points only, which is kind of a. It's like yes, but like I don't know if that's the Finals MVP.
And I do like the literal use of most valuable player, even though in a lot of regular seasons that would go to some dog shit team, but.
That should have been a Steph Curry award, but it is fine. And then, of course, that history played out as it went. Or it could have been Draymond would have won the 16 finals if they don't blow that. So it's all unfortunate. But I did want to compliment Jason Tatum. I thought Game 5 was amazing. I thought that was probably the most impressive Jason Tatum game I've ever seen. It wasn't perfect, but I thought that was the first time that I thought for a fact that Jason Tatum also understood how good he was and how capable he was. And I think the moment that series was done and this championship was won was, I think, around the second quarter when they were starting to make a second pull away, and he goes in and about 3 Mavericks just whack the shit out of him, grab him, and he still converts an and one. I was like, yeah, that's that LeBron James and one. You don't want to see those. Those are the most, because we talk about Steph Curry bombs, and they are demoralizing. I don't want to take away from Steph.
No, when you're trying to intentionally make sure a guy is not going to even get the ball up, and he still puts it in, that's tough.
It's tough to do that, dude. And LeBron, I think that's the best thing he could learn from LeBron is those big daddy and ones because those are just sons of bitches to deal with.
And then both of those guys were third picks in the draft in concurrent years, right?
Yeah, so that's been something we've been talking about, and it's actually funny because those concurrent drafts were the only probably concurrent drafts in NBA history that had the exact same three teams
And
picking.
I was gonna note on that I saw that this morning, and that's crazy. Is it?
So it's Philadelphia. So Philadelphia would take in the first picks of both of those drafts. They would take Ben Simmons and then Markelle Fultz. In defense of at least one of those, Ben Simmons was and still probably is the best prospect of that class.
There was a moment where you could see it, and then all of a sudden it just
and then shit just went downhill with Ben. It did.
You almost never. I feel like you don't see that a lot where it actually seemed like because like sometimes you see talent, but his looked like realized talent, and then then that went away.
The injuries have been an excuse, but like at the end of the day,
psychological.
It feels like there's also been a lack of desire in his game.
I can see that.
So yeah, and this was not a great draft class. Jalen is obviously now, cemented himself.
Is that the Ingram draft?
Ingram's number 2. Ingram should be a much better player than he is. Maybe still will attain that.
The Lakers?
Laker pick. And then, yes, the Lakers pick Lonzo Ball the next year ahead of Tatum and Brown. Now, Brown, I didn't even think was going to go third the year he got drafted. So I just want people to understand that. So Boston did sort of reach on him. Dragon Bender, most people don't remember anymore, but that was a big deal. He was a complete bust. Chris Dunn ended up being a useful defensive player, but never, ever a lottery pick. Buddy Hield can't even play defense. Jamal Murray has been one of the best players from this class. I'll skip some names because we're looking at Jakob Poeltl as being one of your top guys. You're looking at Domantas Sabonis, obviously deserves his credit. But yeah, most of this you're not looking at a lot of superstars, except for I think this isn't the Jokic is 14, right? I think Jokic has already been drafted by this point.
Well, no, Jokic was like second round.
That's what I meant. I'm about 2014
draft.
Oh,
sorry. But yeah,
sure.
I said all that just to say Brad Davis has obviously done. Brad Stevens obviously done a great job putting this thing together.
And I was going the long way around explaining those two draft classes because 2017 he deserves more credit. Now Jaylen Brown, I respect, but that was not a great draft class. He took the best talent available to him, and it worked out. We love that. And he wasn't the draft. That was actually Danny Ainge.
Oh.
He was the coach. He would have been the coach of this team.
Yeah.
Brad would have been the coach of this team. Danny would have still been running it. But he would have probably had control over some of these decisions more than
probably had a couple of vetoes, yeah.
We have to remember Boston brought him in to rebuild this franchise after the Big Three era blew up. And they brought him in with a big payday because he was about to get paid big fat stacks by a college basketball team to lead Butler. Instead, they poached him. So 2017 is what I want to talk more about.
Did he come in? I was going to say, when he came in as the coach, is that when they had just made the trade and got the picks from the Nets, or is this after that?
Essentially, I think it's the year after. Okay. Yeah, because they hire him right after Doc. Okay. They trade Doc to the Clippers and then they hire him. There's nobody in the middle. Markelle Fultz, I never really saw it. A very talented player, still like Markelle, but there was a lot of questions I had about Fultz, but he was such a good rim attacking guard, and people kind of talked themselves into his shooting that for whatever reason that was there. Lonzo was one of the most important and impactful players in college basketball, and I could see why people thought that was instantly going to translate. But the Lakers were in such a piss poor place at the time that he wasn't going to help that. And then all the injury stuff, all the LeVar stuff, it wasn't going to be till 4 years later that Lonzo finally became who he is. And then now his knees have completely fucked on him.
And so the Lakers aren't a developmental organization, at least not.
They're not a patient. Yes.
Not in my brief knowledge of what's going on here.
That being said, your boy is going to do a victory lap. I don't know where it is. I probably have this somewhere in my OneNote history. But this was probably one of the first times I started doing my own notes. I would Del Frisco's, I would do doubles. I would go to the library that was in South Lake Times Square, go down to the stairs, and I would just be fucking feverishly taking notes.
We spent our breaks very differently.
And this facts. That's where I would have been. And I was obsessed with Jason Tatum. I was stunned with the fact that people just weren't thinking this was the number one overall player. Stunned. I was like, he's 6'8". I was like, he's like built in the model of LeBron and is stylizing himself after Kobe. I know that's like you get a little ahead of yourself with those comparisons that early, but like you don't want to take a chance on that. And for the Lakers, they fucked themselves. This was Magic's fault. Magic never let that be any other pick. They never, like, everyone knew what was going to happen there. And of course, Boston had the number one pick too. We also need to remember that Boston had the number one pick. They traded down to get Jason Tatum. Fultz was a trade up. So yeah, that's a tough one. Good job, Danny Ainge. Good job, Brad Stevens. Let's move forward a little bit here. Al Horford, congratulations, my friend.
Yeah.
You are officially off the worst list in NBA history.
He did what we were hoping the Stars would be able to do for Pavelski, and it didn't play out.
Didn't happen. Al Horford was the third highest playoff games played of all time without winning a championship. Number 1 and number 2 are Stockton and Malone. Do you know who the new number 3 is? It's awesome and it's funny, and if it stays this way forever,
is it Harden?
It's James Harden. James Harden is now the third player with the most playoff games played without a title.
Was Westbrook on the bubble Lakers?
No, Westbrook Lakers never.
So he
never
still
even
hasn't got
playoffs.
his.
No,
he's got to be somewhere on that list, right?
Yes, but no, because they got bounced quickly whenever Durant was gone.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking they had that team longer than they did, but it really wasn't the whole long.
And there was a year that Durant was injured when they were together. I don't think they went.
I mean, they only made one. They made the one finals. Yeah,
I think they were a first round bounce, but they went deep otherwise. I mean, they hit the Western Conference a couple times. They played well, but it wasn't. There wasn't a lot of sustained success after Durant specifically, and I think that hurt him the most. And then even with the Rockets, he didn't do well with the Rockets. The Wizards never made the playoffs.
They might have made one, but if they did, they would have been swept or something.
Yeah, I think the Wizards did make the playoffs his 1 year there, but they only won a game or maybe 0. Brad Stevens, we've talked a lot about you, but congratulations for playing 2K in real life and getting it done in that window. If you remember the start this season, I was like, this is a very small window you have to kind of push chips in before it gets too hard. And he did with the KP signing, and it didn't necessarily work out perfectly, but it got him to exactly where he needed to.
I mean, every time he played, it worked. So, and he played more than I thought he would. Even so.
He did that part. That was the most important part. Is he played more than any of us anticipated.
Because I mean, we could talk about everything for all day and all night, but if he's not there at the start of this finals, that could be a whole different look to this series than what we got. I think having him at the beginning really made it a lot easier for them to finish it quickly.
Yeah, I think he killed my prediction, but I think my prediction was right for a lot of reasons, because this Celtics team was always going to have a lot of ways to stunt the Mavericks no matter how great they would have played. And then, of course, they didn't play that great. But we'll get to Mavericks in a second. I just wanted one last thing on the Boston. Their head coach, Joey Mazzulla. Congratulations, Joe. You have one of the funniest rise to power stories, and you are one of the weirdest humans to ever be a head coach, which is also saying something. I've got 4 Phil Jackson books back here, bro. You're already ahead of that. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy, bro. Strange guy, Boston guy. So that's already pretty cool for the city. Gets the job because the head coach that they were in love with, they were so happy to have brought in Ime Udoka, ends up having an affair with one of the front office people's wives, or
I think she herself was an employee. Yeah, that was the problem.
And then, of course, he was publicly in a relationship, that they were all sort of celebrating, and then that just blew up in infinity. And then Joey Maz comes up here. Who is Joey Maz? Well, he has a bit of a problematic history. Well, we get past that because it's the NBA. We ignore
coaching against Jason Kidd, who's just been
an
angel,
really,
saint.
incredible that we got through that finals and I didn't hear one person talk about either of these men having the same.
That's because they all did it before a certain year where Twitter didn't exist. So
And so Joey Maz, you're the hero, you're the weirdo Boston needs, but maybe not the one it deserves. Like you said, Boston's got a lot of fortune. So for them to get their own boy come in here, he used to talk about how much he loved watching that Boston movie about bank heists with the town. Good movie. But like he talks about how he watches that in preparation to get ready for games. The most Boston movie ever made by Ben Affleck.
it's just you watch a 3-hour movie. There's nothing better strategically you could be doing in that 3 hours.
That's what he says. So he's doing that. Hey, this is a champion. You don't have to apologize. No, he's a champion.
He's probably just watching. He's probably watching like 3 scenes on YouTube.
He's also obsessed with mixed martial arts. Boom, right in the Boston bandwagon again. And then for the ultimate trifecta, uber Jesus freak, like next level Jesus freak. Like
I feel like that's a little different because even though they're all like Catholic and shit up there, I don't think that they're all like really as into the actual text as they are just following the steps.
I'm not saying he's not.
I'm saying like, I'm just saying
I'm saying he is, and it's funny because he's also done some mainstream media stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like I know that if Donald Trump wins the presidency, the Boston Celtics are repeating because there's no way Joey Maz is passing up that opportunity. There's no way. I know enough about Joe Mazzulla to know he's got a hat somewhere. I know. There's too many other indicators. I'm fine with it.
I mean,
it is what it is.
I would venture to guess at least 70 to 80% of the major pro sports people in general.
No, that's what their money goes to. I'm talking about because they're cheap. Everybody in America is cheap, and then they sign up with that side because they like to be cheap. Athletes are no different. Joey Maz, he believes it. Joey Maz, I think, sends money out for conversion therapy. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Joey Maz is not fucking around. So I just want to say congratulations to him.
I didn't realize he was so
no,
for the cause.
No, Joey Maz is. I'm so, and I don't have enough proof of that. I'm recklessly speculating, but I think I'm also right. So I don't care. We'll talk about the Mavericks, a team that is owned by. Anyway, we'll move on from that.
Well, we should at least, since you made that mention, talk about the Tim McMahon thing.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and get
the
that
structural organization, just to kind of like like at the end of PTI when Tony Reale used to do like the here's where you guys fucked up. We finally get our correction or our clarification on
clarity
the Mavs, organization,
which was surprising. It feels like pairing this with the Pablo Torre thing last week. It feels like this was intentionally.
It's odd that. And maybe, let me find. Okay, I'll read the actual quote from McMahon. Cuban, despite his claims after selling the majority share of the franchise mid-season to the Adelson and Dumont families, no longer has control of basketball operations. So that's pretty much what you need to know, which is it's odd that they didn't just go ahead and tell us the truth, or maybe he thought it was going to be one thing and then it didn't end up being that. Who knows?
Or maybe it was true for a bit, and then they used that as a way to bend the truth to us.
Yeah, I was just not sure. But it is interesting that, the guy who's been in charge of that pretty much 100% for most of our lifetime, since 99, 2000 is when he bought the team?
Yeah.
That's
1999,
wild.
I think.
Yeah. I remember pretty much the first big thing he did was bring in Dennis Rodman, which, from a basketball standpoint, bad idea, but it launched interest back into the Mavericks that wasn't there.
And I'm pro having Dallas natives play for the Mavericks. They've not done that enough in the past.
Yeah, and I think my guess is that talking to Rodman, I think he's got enough of a good personality that everyone is like, oh, he's gonna be great here. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh god.
And then we also can't understate how much they needed to sell tickets at the time.
Yeah. So yeah,
they had a Dirk, they didn't, but there wasn't that Dirk.
Cuban was integral, I would assume. Actually, probably not. Was he was he integral in the building of the American Airlines Center, or was that already in motion?
No, that was Perot's, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he kind of gets to inherit a new arena, but he does keep Don Nelson around long enough to build a championship team
and
eventually.
Nelson ends up doing that. Well, Don Nelson builds the dirt part.
Yeah, at least the
Nelson
first
takes
Western
over.
Conference championship team, yeah.
And he destroyed that team and then destroyed it the next year.
And well, sort of.
But he did. I mean, they radically had to change some stuff after that 07 collapse.
But yeah, so it's worth and I guess to get to that point is kind of where I want to get to something I mentioned earlier, where the Mavs. We're gonna talk about they overachieved this year. They did a lot of stuff no one expected, and then everyone's gonna say, well, they'll be back. But 06, you would have thought that team that was up 2-0 in the finals was gonna be back no problem, and it took another 5 years. So
it's gonna take some things,
and this is something, and it's how I feel about how the Star season ended. Of things look good, but it was there for you, and it sucks. It sucks to miss out on that when you're really there.
I think for the Stars, that's more so true than the Mavericks this year. I think the Mavericks earned their way, and I don't want to make it sound like they didn't, but I certainly think that Denver kind of either not being able to or choosing to be as thin as they were, or to, I guess in a better way, to rely on as many young players to have a step up as they were hoping in the season that never happened. I think that
we discussed
that really opened the door.
We discussed how difficult back-to-back is, even when a team is incredible. There's something about the drain. There's something about just trying to bring it back. But I just I just feel like it is worth mentioning that you don't always get you don't always get that far. And Kid did point out, we made it to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago or whatever.
Well, that's why it's more about what is the one thing that multiple repeat, finals appearances have in common for teams or whatever, right? Is there's usually one or two players that have a lot to do with that. And in theory, the Dallas Mavericks have probably the 1, 2, 3 best current option in the NBA to do that. However, in my opinion, Luka's got to take this in a different direction moving forward, because this was a learning lesson as much as it was anything. Now, you can easily say the Mavericks weren't ready, that they were undermatched, that they still have plenty of room to grow, that they arrived a little early to the party, if you would. And I wouldn't disagree with those. But it still doesn't change the fact that Luka has to change a little bit more. Not a lot, just a little bit more. And in honesty, I hope he tells Slovenia to go suck a dick this offseason.
I think that was basically confirmed when he stopped a reporter mid-question asking about it to say he's not going to talk about that right now.
I think he should. I think at this point...
he's broken.
Well, but what? Yeah, no, first of all, yes, your body literally needs to heal. Because how can I even expect you to be in shape if you're still going to nurse these injuries?
That's why it's tough. That's part of why it's tough for me to have much to say to him at all. Is what more could he be expected to do?
Well, again, Jason Tatum's offensive flaws were not as exposed as Luka's defensive flaws. Correct?
Sure.
That's what matters to me. It's yes, I can still try to recreate the Mavericks and make it to where I don't have to have Luka do a whole hell of a lot of anything on defense. But then is he taking up the entire? Is literally he doing everything on offense? Does that mean I've traded in every piece for defensive only players because he's giving me nothing?
I think the biggest problem with this Mavs run the last 2 rounds, unfortunately, is Kyrie Irving's lack of production, because that puts Luka in a terrible spot with his current roster, because there's literally no one else.
No, absolutely. And it doesn't help that Kyrie also defensively, while he can try as hard as he can, he's only 6'1", so much, maybe 200.
As they were going into the playoffs, we talked about how good those two are together and what that's going to mean in a series, and it looked that way for the first probably series and a half. And it's crazy to me that the crowd actually bothers Kyrie that much, and
I
that
would say one out of two. I would say yes, that there was no doubt that Kyrie was bothered
I mean,
by the
he said
atmosphere.
it out loud.
Yeah, I know he said it out loud because he can't duck the question. He looks like a shithead. But like at the same time, you just played a team that had Jason Tatum, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Drew Holiday to throw at you.
I think
That's about as good of a. And Kyrie doesn't have much more to his game. He's not a passer.
and that's the thing is more. I bought the Kool-Aid about how good he
is good, but
I mean, as far as put him up against anybody, you know, and he'll still be able
even
to
look
beat
at
Kyrie.
that title.
Yeah.
How did the 2016 champions happen? ISO ball. Does that work all the time? No. Did that work one time for those two guys and maybe no one else ever in the history? Possibly. Very, very possibly. Like you play that ISO ball the way they did, and it's also not like I love Klay Thompson, I love Draymond Green. The Warriors were a great defensive roster. They didn't throw 4 elite guys out there at all times like that. And then have KP or Al Horford to cover.
Yeah, we haven't even brought up the name Derek White, which should get his name brought up.
Yeah, Derek White played such a good brand of basketball, so much energy throughout 5 games.
And I would probably my main thing that I would say was my conclusion of the finals was we knew going in that Luka had to be the best player and then some, and unfortunately he just physically couldn't do that.
He didn't have the end some. Yeah, he had the worst thing for Luka is game 3, right? How much will game 3 hang over his head the way that LeBron's 8-point game in finals? I mean, it does. It's different. It's because LeBron really doesn't get a whole lot of shit for losing to Spurs.
It's the whole moving the goalpost thing of like eventually you have to get down to these even more specifics. You're like, well, yeah, but his one worst game finals total. You're like, okay, come on.
But
I know, I get it. Talk
about it. Like
it just makes me laugh.
LeBron could have won 6 titles in a row after 2011, and everyone would have still brought up that 8-point game. And for me, it's not a big deal, even if they do still bring up Luka's temper tantrum ejection in game 3. You know, you're basically talking about, and I do classify it as a temper tantrum. I know he didn't actually get ejected, but
I was gonna say he fouled out, right? Yeah, okay.
He basically threw a temper tantrum on the court. Like he quit. Like I've done that in 2K. I'm getting my ass beat. I'm just fouling out. Whatever, coach. Next game. Fuck this bullshit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean it comes down to they don't have
reckless.
They don't have the roster to support. He just needs a little more help.
They've done a great job of remixing this group. I said it, but there was no reason to expect that. And I said it at the deadline. I was like, this is a fucking awesome trade deadline. They did such a good job. This still isn't good enough to win a title.
Yeah.
And it almost proved me wrong.
It is good enough to win a title, but it has to be a perfect
with
run.
Extenuating circumstances. Yeah, of course. And
try not to run into a team that went 64 and 18 in the regular season.
Well, sometimes teams do win championships in the offseason. We just don't really award that until they convert, right? I think that the 08 Celtics have always sort of been the biggest example. I would even look at the 2020 Lakers as an example because essentially they have not been able to repeat that success since that first year. I would look at I know a lot of teams that you put this together, you put a perfect team together, and all you need is for them to stay healthy and for them to fucking figure it out, and they did this time around. Celtics have had a few teams like that. 85 Celtics also, or is it? No, 86, I think it's their year. Either way, the Bill Walton one.
86 would be ironic.
I know it wasn't. Yeah, 86 is the last Celtics.
I feel like either 86 or 84 is Buckner.
Yeah, 86 is the last Boston title for the Bird Celtics.
But
and
it's the Mavs roster construction is confusing. I guess they're still just trapped from previous. They're just working off scraps. I don't really understand how they can't do anything every year.
It's not that they can't do everything every year. It's they couldn't in the previous years. They are much more free and much more flexible than they had been.
Okay.
So when they traded for Kristaps Porzingis, it wasn't
Isn't their only pick in this draft the very last pick?
Yeah, but that's because they had to give up the last of the KP assets. But they have now 3 draft picks they can put together because now once you get to this draft, now another draft pick opens up down the road because it's like 7 years out you can trade. Right?
Stepien, right?
The Stepien is 2 years,
Consecutive
back-to-back
years.
The 7 years rule is.
Oh, you can't trade anything past 7 years.
That might be a part of the Stepien rule as well, actually, but it isn't. Yeah, it's okay. 7 years is as far out as you can trade. And so essentially that's where the Mavericks are. You know, when they traded for Kristaps, again, for the billionth time, it wasn't the cost of assets. It was the money they gave him instantly that fucked them. Because then they had no ability to go out and really get it better because they had no medium contracts. They had low-level contracts. They had big salary. That's it.
I think now the thing to do is blame them for fucking up Jalen Brunson's rookie contract where they lost control of the 5th year.
Yes, that's also a part of it. Well, and maybe that's why Cuban essentially had to take his L. Because he was a very responsible party in the Jalen Brunson
because he didn't draft Giannis and because he.
Well, the Giannis thing's unfortunate. And talking about it like it was going to make you look better is also unfortunate.
Well, I mean, it's now that you have Luka, it's kind of wash, but.
But I will say, so the thing about the Mavericks, we talk about they have more draft picks to trade. They have a decision to make on Derrick Jones Jr. They have Tim Hardaway Jr. with a decent contract that they can put in some sort of trade package. Of course, that would need assets.
Never trust him again. I know he set some sort of NBA Finals record, but
it was him and him, Curry, and I forgot and Ray Allen. I think are the only people to make 5 in a quarter.
Just post that stat on the cover sheet for every trade and just try to get him out of there. Because my God, dude.
Josh Green, whether you want to keep Josh Green or not, that's a decent salary and useful player.
I feel like Green and Hardy are useful. I feel like
Hardy, I think you should trade. Actually,
you think you should trade Hardy?
I think that Hardy is. Maybe you give him 1 more year because I do like the idea of his catch and shoot ability, but I think unless you can certainly start next year with him as the 3rd guard, like the true 3rd guard, where you give him the space to learn and play. I'm okay with it then. But if they're just going to keep kind of will they, won't they with his minutes, then I think it's fucking useless and someone else will make that asset. You could probably get a useful player out of him because someone will give him minutes. And I think that's the biggest issue. If they don't want to give him minutes, then just move on. You know what I mean? Like, don't do this stupid shit because he's a useful player. We just don't know how useful yet.
And then, I mean, there's also worth pointing out the team that it is now is so much different than the team that broke camp last year that they're actually going to have practice at a training camp with these players.
And you probably go into it adding another wing, if not 2. Like, that's the thing is this Mavericks team was desperate for help. Derrick Jones Jr. and PJ Washington, they turned into a bit of a pumpkin. Not a big deal, especially for PJ, because I still think he gave you enough in other ways. Derrick Jones Jr. is still a useful player. It depends on salary whether they bring him back.
The thing is, they're all fine. They just need to be moved down a few notches on the importance tier.
Or just give me more. Just give me also bring in Tobias Harris. Give me more. Give me back Dorian Finney-Smith. Give me more guys to plug in when my guys aren't working. Maximum Kleba, thank you for everything you've done. It's time to go, bro. You can't. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Maxi. I know you were injured. I cannot excuse. It was bad, dude. It was so inexcusable how much this guy was just not contesting at the rim.
I mean, that's like the whole thing about him when he was hurt the whole time was when he gets back, the defense is going to be so much better, blah, blah, blah.
And then he just wasn't, I showed the one last week, but he did it so many times. There's so many times where he just made business decisions at the rim. And I'm sure it's because the shoulder was fucked. I get it.
Well, he's got to play for Germany in a couple weeks.
No, he's not playing for Germany.
I know.
Ever again. But so I think that there's some options. Like I said, if I was the Mavericks, I would probably be more interested in maybe combining the cap money for a couple of these guys and bringing in somebody nice. I think maybe if you're really pipe dreaming it up, you're the ones who steal Lauri Markkanen from the Utah Jazz. Probably worst case on that similar scale is you spend that on Jeremy Grant. Somebody who's probably a little overpaid, but exactly what you need.
I've been told they're going to use the last pick to draft Bronny, sign LeBron, and then
I'm still stunned at how many teams feel like that's a reality.
well, I mean, we don't really need to talk about it because I don't know if it's officially official, but the JJ Redick hiring seems to imply that imply that LeBron's not going anywhere, at least for a year.
Yeah, we are going to cover that in a tiny little bit. I'm going to go through a speed run of off-season notes so we don't have to waste too much time. But yes, essentially, what does this what is the draft pick of LeBron James Jr. is going to get drafted in a decent pick in my opinion. I think it'll probably be an early second round pick.
I was going to say probably between lottery and end of first round. I feel like someone might trade into the first round to do it, but I think it's going to happen in the first round.
I don't know that they will because contractually, I don't think they're going to be that excited about putting him on a first round deal.
Yeah, good call.
But I do think that he'll get selected. The interesting part, though, I don't know if you've seen, is he's not working out for anybody.
Yeah,
he's worked out for like 3 teams total. So I'm telling you right now, LeBron James Jr. is going to be a good NBA player.
He just sends. You think he is?
I think he is because they're playing the game right now. They are playing him. They are playing into his not playing so hard and so confidently that I think he's at least a role player.
I think it'd be awesome if he was, but history tells me that likely not. Although now we're seeing a lot in baseball. We're seeing in baseball now that there is some precedent.
I would say even in the NBA, I think we've had a great run of at least useful role players of Suns, even if they're not stars. I don't know if we have a star.
I mean, see, that's the other thing is it's tough when it's potentially the best to ever do it.
Star. I think Bronny James is going to be like a 10-year.
Well, I mean, when their dad, when his dad is also like the expectations compare,
Mm-hmm.
Like if Barry Bonds Jr. was coming into the MLB versus like even Vlad Guerrero Jr., a little different.
Yeah. No, and I think it'll be interesting. I still think it'll probably be a Laker. You know what I mean?
That makes the most sense, right?
The only team he's other worked out for is the Suns, and that makes sense too because they need guards. So it's one of those things where I think Bronny's going to be very, very useful to whatever team gets him, and I think that they know that because they are so deliberately trying to get him on a team.
Well, yeah, they are very deliberately. I think the only thing the NBA doesn't like is that LeBron isn't already retired and started the Vegas franchise to draft his own son.
Well, there's still hope for Bryce. We can still get that done before Bryce pops up.
See the one? Which one was in Space Jam 2? Were either of them the actual kids?
No.
Okay.
No. I don't think either was actually based on because I think he just had 2 boys in that, right?
Yeah.
He's got 2 boys and a girl in real life.
There could have been a daughter. I watched it once. I'm not gonna go back.
Same. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the Mavs, man. It's going to be a fun time. I do think that this is not a one-off. Maybe they don't get back next year.
Yeah, I just worry
but I do think that this is opening the door.
They need a different scorer option that's not Kyrie, or else I don't believe that they're going to actually win a title because it's asking too much of Luka. Like LeBron in Cleveland the first time, you're asking too much.
You need more depth. Or LeBron in 2011 when they had a great 3 guys and not a motherfucker else.
There's just too much. The league is too good to get away with that.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks. It's difficult.
Jordan. I'm just kidding.
It's bites at the apple. You know what I mean? You want bites at the apple. LeBron gave himself and his teams many bites at the apple. He was able to come up with as many as he could. That's what Luka's job is.
I also worry that this kind of success makes Jason Kidd look better than he might actually be in some situations where he might be causing you some problems. But like when he's calling a timeout when the Mavs are on a big run.
Yes, or giving into Luka's replay, or no, it was PJ that asked him to replay something early in like game 1 that was such a stupid.
And it's the whole replay system is so dumb.
And I think that's changed moderately.
I've seen him have to waste him on some really dumb ones, and I feel bad in that sense. So it's like
Always the player's
I
fault.
kind of feel like, well, no, I mean like everyone in the arena knew a ball was out on someone else, and the ref called it wrong. And you're like, well, now I have to use my challenge because you fucked up an obvious call.
No, those are the nice parts. A lot of times it's just the players not.
That's why I feel like you should be able to just keep going until you miss one at least. But I do worry that he might not be the guy, and that's masked by runs.
Well, next year if they fall on their face, then he'll.
But he just got the extension in the playoffs, so.
Monty Williams just got paid the most that NBA coach has ever been paid. He got fired.
Yeah, we'll touch on some of that. Yeah, there is more of that happening in the world now, especially I guess now that the owners all have more money, they can do this.
They're getting better about it. So that's the future for the Mavs. You know, I still have a little high hope.
And we're about on time for Kyrie to start throwing a fit, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think Kyrie's good. I think that the question for me long term with Kyrie is what does his contract look like? Because that's where the Mavs could really get lucky. I was kind of fiddling around on 2K just to kind of get an idea.
They paid him like right when they got him, didn't they? That offseason.
But it's small. It's a short-term contract. So they're going to have to get back at this again soon. And if they are to that's the question. So if they are to pull in another good player that will need an extension, or either they're signing him upright by getting rid of other guys to clear room, or they're trading for him, right? That is going to be an interesting conversation because that's essentially where the Mavericks could get lucky. Luka's obviously paid very handsomely, but Kyrie has paid moderately handsomely and probably won't deserve max money by the time he's up again. That means if you get a guy, Brandon Ingram, Larry Markkinen.
No, but if he had won the title this year, he could have gotten that max money. Although Cuban's gone now, so who knows?
Well, he might still be able to get that max money even if he's not good. It's the NBA.
Well, I mean, from the Mavericks specifically, but
for the Mavericks specifically. So I think there's some interesting options. I think that's my goal for the Mavericks: is can you steal Brandon Ingram? Can you steal Larry Markkinen? Can you find somebody who's on a moderately good contract that you have to re-sign? It's going to mean basically giving up all of your assets, but then essentially making a bigger, better group to build around. And then in the future, Kyrie takes $30 million a year. Even that is such a nice discount for his game and for what the rate's going to be in 2 years, you know?
And I mean, the other, another concerning thing for them not getting it done this year is just all these young teams in the West are, they're not all going to keep getting better exponentially, every year or whatever, but you expect the Thunder to be right there, if not even better next year. You expect the Timberwolves to be right there, if not even better next year. You got to expect that the Nuggets will at least have one more good push in them. You don't know what the Warriors are. You don't know what the Lakers are.
I would say the West is the biggest question mark.
Even some of the bottom teams, like the Spurs, aren't going to make the playoffs, but it's going to be a tough 4 fucking games for them.
I would expect the Spurs to be a play-in team at least next year.
I'm just setting my bar super low. I do think that they're
pretty good. Yeah,
I think even those 4 games are not going to be fun for you. You know what I mean? Like there's no.
No, that's true.
It's not. Next season isn't pick up and okay, we're back in the finals immediately. You got to go through that damn blender feels like it's getting even tougher.
But neither it is for Boston potentially, right?
But they're in the East,
but Philadelphia essentially gets to have the opportunity, if they can nail the moves, to have the biggest offseason. What does that mean? We'll see, but it meant a championship for Boston this year.
Yeah, I'm just going to go off my entire the history of the 76ers in my life and just say that they're going to be pretty good, but it'll fall apart round 2 or 3.
Especially with the options they have on the market. But we'll see. The Knicks were such a good team that just got worn down by injury.
I do wonder if Brunson is that. We'll see.
Well, it's not just Brunson.
I know,
is it Brunson and Randall? Is it Brunson and are they going to re-sign
Anunoby? A huge piece of just the amount of points they put in is what he was able to do this year. And if he can keep that up for another year or 2, then yes, I will be more afraid of them.
Are the Heat going to stand pat? Unintended. are
I'm
you know
always
what I mean?
afraid of the Heat. They could be like 0-71, and I'm still afraid of Eric Spoelstra.
Well, look, the Atlanta Hawks are about to give somebody a good player, in my opinion.
There's a team I don't fear.
I didn't
I
say to
know, I
fear them.
know. Just
I said they're about to give somebody a good player. Either Trey Young or DeJounte Murray, in my opinion, is about to be put on a good roster in a similar way as Drew Holiday. The price might be a little bit heftier, but I think that both of those players could end up being, especially DeJounte, because his
it's like,
contract is
can we
so
can we
nice.
somehow get Murray back for less than we got
Well,
for him?
I mean, DeJounte to a team like San Antonio is nice, but I think DeJounte to a team like LA, who else really needs guard?
So
Either LA team
someone
actually.
who needs a number 3 or 4 option, not a number 2 option.
Yes, I mean, but literally, if the Lakers get DeJounte, I think that's a very interesting move for them because D'Angelo has been good for them, but defensively, he's given them such problems that they don't know how to answer. Where you would kind of have that solved with DeJounte, but then it kind of brings other issues with his offense. So it's not a perfect player, but he has such a beautiful salary. I think it's DeJounte's salary is probably the best part of it, really, because you know what you get out of him, even if it's a little inconsistent. And at the price, it's such a premium. But let's do the off-season stuff and wrap up here. So I'll try to give you as many notes as you can. Or is there any other Dallas
I was
Maverick
just trying to
related?
think if I had anything else
We touched on most of it.
I
I think we're
wanted
good.
to puke out there, but um, no. I mean, it was a crazy time where like a month ago we thought we might all of a sudden be holding 3 trophies at once in DFW, and
And now we're just looking back at the Cowboys
we're
like,
stuck with just one,
uh.
this one right
Now we're
here.
now we're just looking at this team like,
I mean, they're gonna do pretty well. They're gonna make the playoffs. They
they're
might
gonna give
win.
us
They
reason to
might
believe.
win one or two. They're
Uh,
they're just about the most consistent thing around. Actually, they're good for.
in a bad way.
They're good. Well, sort of, but not even
Hey,
that.
hey,
But not
now that
even
the
really
Boston,
though, because it's mostly successful. It's just you
yeah,
can't
but
go all the way.
it's like a worse version of what Boston just did with their team. You know, it's like we feel like we're competitive every year, but then like they at least get a little bit closer to the title race, and then now they won it.
Yeah, you're
We
not
don't get
making
anywhere
you're not getting
fucking.
progressive steps. But we did also talk about this earlier, where football is it's just the one game, and that's why March Madness is such a popular thing because crazy shit can go down in just one game.
Very true. All right, off-season stuff.
Yeah,
This will be fairly quick and easy. Boom with the bumble clap. Um, teams can now agree to deals ASAP Rocky with the new language. That was actually as official as soon as the finals ended. We hadn't got anybody officially, agreed
yeah. You get the first few hours are just a tampering trap, so don't release anything then.
upon. Yeah, basically. Um, so they still can't technically sign these contracts till the July date, the official change of the league year and all, but they are agreed upon and they can be agreed upon verbally. So Pascal Siakam, the first guy who was traded in season, has re-upped for 4 years, $189 million, which is not math I can do off the top of my dome,
What'd you say?
but is
Sorry, 4
about,
years, 189,
ooh,
45, 42 and a
that's
half.
that's 48 a year, baby.
Okay.
That's NBA money now. But yeah, so Pascal Siakam is now a very well paid man and will stay an Indiana Pacer. Nobody else has had any other data to come up with. Just wanted to let everybody know that it is possible for those deals to be agreed upon if you are signing with the same team, obviously. If you're talking to new teams, that's not really going to happen. The most expensive as head coach has been fired. Monty Williams was let go this morning. Pistons will hit the market again. They will join the Los Angeles Lakers, who will probably hire JJ Redick on Monday or Friday, maybe. You think they news dump it? Because I feel like can you announce? I feel like they don't announce it today. There's no way that they announce it today. But most likely the Los Angeles Lakers are going to hire JJ Redick. I think they're probably negotiating over contract and probably trying to tell him who his assistants will be because that's been something the Lakers have done in the past. there is a little bit of a minor interesting point here that we kind of talked about, and some other people have really talked about, is Woj versus Shams, where did Woj make a blow up a more or less fake story, or did he overblow a real story in just to get at Shams when it turns out Shams might have been right the whole time? That's really the question. For
I
me,
mean,
that's hard to believe, but how do you feel?
one of them works for ESPN, and the other one Pat McAfee keeps inviting on, which feels like he's doing that intentionally.
I agree a little bit. I
I
agree.
don't know which one's which because I don't follow these guys that well, but
So
I just think it's such a 2024 story.
they've
I
been
don't
beefing for a decade,
I
bro.
don't,
They
but
really
you know
don't
what I
like each
mean.
other.
Like you know what I mean. Though, like the story that it's a story about guys breaking a non-story. It's just
Well, no, that's the other part is that we essentially had the finals interrupted by the Lakers potentially hiring the best college coach, but that wasn't even all that. It was technically true. They interviewed him. They were interested in him, but they also lowballed him essentially compared to other
yeah.
offers that he would have gotten. And it does seem like JJ Redick has been attached to this job for the longest and possibly has been the number
We
one
should have
candidate this
known the
entire
minute
time.
that podcast started that.
I was surprised. It escalated quickly because when Charlotte was interested, I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." A program that doesn't have as much to do with it. But again, I've always said I think JJ Redick should go to Brooklyn, Boston, New York, LA, Miami. I know that all those jobs are not on the table, but I think that those jobs are the ones that he would stay at if he is good.
I can't wait for the press conference when LeBron goes. You know, I don't even really see us as having a head coach. One day I could be the head coach. One day AD could be the head coach.
All right, look
And then AD just pulls out the 12th man, just like Kevin Durant did, and be like, yeah, even this guy could be the coach one day.
LeBron gets a pass on that one because he actually did have to deal with that. The rest of them are fucked.
He didn't make that. That's a Kyrie Irving.
It was Kyrie Irving's
Yeah,
thing, but
for
they
New
were both
Jersey.
talking about the same guy, right? I think that was the.
No, that was
that?
Brooklyn.
Oh, that was
That was him and
Steve
Kevin
Nash.
Durant. Yeah.
No, dude, because they did the same shit to what's his name?
I don't even see us as having a head coach. You think that's a good
Um,
way to start the season?
what was fuck, David Blatt.
Oh yeah, he got done dirty.
They both. There wasn't a single player that respected that dude. Um, and he had that job for a year and a half. That's still impressive to me. Either way, that's probably who the Lakers will hire. I know that that is important because the Cavs are most linked to James Borrego, former Hornets coach, former Spurs assistant, current New Orleans Pelicans assistant. Borrego's been a very interesting name, a guy I really like. Thought he did a great job in Charlotte. Just kind of got the short end of the stick there. Kind of got blamed for the shit that wasn't his fault.
Literally impossible to do well there unless
I mean, they
some
were
kind of
good.
major structural organizational changes happen. They're going to continue being where they are.
They had big. Well, actually, I do like their new group, but yes, I'm more positive about them now. But yes, the last 10 years, it has been Groundhog Day there, and he had the looking decent for a second, and then LaMelo Ball's injuries just kind of piled up on them. Miles Bridges gets fucking, I mean, like it's just a whole situation with that team. Johnny Bryant, the assistant for the Knicks, Chris Quinn, assistant for the Heat, and Kenny Atkinson, former head coach of the Nets and current assistant in Golden State. Those are all linked to the job.
Kenny Atkinson, the one who lost his job despite doing very well with a
despite being the guy
roster,
they should have
kept.
Yeah. JJ, the reason I think part of this is, and the reason I link those together, I think that they're linked together in all reality because I think that if the Lakers could have it their way, they would have JJ as the head coach and James Borrego as a lead assistant. But obviously I don't know that Borrego, I don't know either guy wants to do that as much as the Lakers want to do that. But I am mentioning that in the same breath because I think the Cavs would have already signed Borrego had the Lakers not still had so much interest in him. But I still think the Lakers' interest in him is as an assistant, not the guy. But we'll see. No one else All right, and then the rest of these have been named. So Charlotte has hired Charles Lee. That's Boston's lead assistant. This is Joe Mazzulla's right-hand man. And of course, if next season starts to go off the rails, it will be interesting to see how much he was responsible for. Who knows in all reality?
He'll get a bunch of extra credit if things don't go well.
Yeah, essentially. But that is something people look about, especially with him getting his rise to fame being that he was sort of right there with Joe the whole time the MA thing blew up. And he was really like taking on the same levels of responsibility to some extent. So
I just love to keep it Boston related that Brady wins a Super Bowl. And it's like, well, obviously he's better than Belichick. Don't worry about the entire Bucs franchise that had to get things right to make that work. It's just the quarterback.
Just the quarterback. The Wizards removed the interim tag from Chief Keef's cousin Brian, and he will officially be the head coach, sitting duck in Washington as they probably head for another number 1 overall pick, or the chances of another number 1 overall.
Yeah.
The Suns decided to fire Frank Vogel after just 1 season, and
Kevin Durant trying to get out yet,
and then brought in Coach Budenholzer. So fired 1 defensive coach to bring in another. Big question: do they actually give these coaches defensive players moving forward? We will see.
Come on, dude. KD's 7 foot tall. He's clearly a good defender.
They're just going to keep trying to sell me on Bol.
Taco Fall up to?
Bro, I still can't believe they traded for Yusuf Nurkic and they were like, no, we figured it out defensively, guys.
Look, Phoenix has never, at least in my sports consciousness, been known for their defense. So
yeah, and
maybe the Barkley Suns were. I don't know, but
to some extent they would have been. But yes, actually, even for that, they probably.
All I know is 7 seconds or less.
I'm just. Even to this moment, I still can't believe they were like, Grayson Allen, Yusuf Nurkic. That's the 2 guys we need to tie up this 5 together.
Look, man.
And the craziest part, Grayson Allen fucking worked. That actually was a fucking great decision, but the other one was stupid. Oh, my God. Anyway.
Sports aren't allowed to be good in Arizona, so just come to terms with it.
I'm baffled. Like, I don't have an opinion necessarily. I'm just baffled. The Brooklyn Nets are the last team to mention in the head coach world. They did not promote Kevin Ollie from interim status. Instead, they hired Kings lead assistant Jordy Fernandez, a guy who had been sort of around these names for quite a bit. I don't remember if Jordy's also been elsewhere before the Kings.
The first Hispanic NBA head coach?
No, I'm not even sure. I'm not even 100% sure.
Could I call it Latin American?
He is Spanish, from Spain.
Oh, he's Spanish. So then he's absolutely the first. Gotta be, right? The first Spanish.
At least head coach. Oh no, that was the Raiders, not the NBA. Yeah, I think you're right. On that. And actually has not had that storied of a career as far as being a coach. Did a lot of time with the G League, and then was part of the Nuggets, essentially just part of rising through the Nuggets. And then he took over the job in Sacramento whenever, I'm pretty sure that's the Mike Brown hire. And then he's been there since. So, yeah, Jordy Fernandez has been a hot name for a couple of years now. So I'm glad to see him get a chance. I'm also glad that the Nets did something like sort of logical and small.
Yeah, absolutely. The first Spanish head coach, if he's even, is he actually? Yeah, he's from Spain. I'm looking at the list, and most of the quote unquote non-U.S. head coaches were all actually born in U.S. to like immigrant, parents.
And what are these, the fucking old coaches from the 50s and 60s?
No, Ime.
Ellis Island.
Ime Udoka, Mike D'Antoni, David Blatt.
Well, that makes sense. Okay, those are names.
Steve Nash is Canadian, obviously. I don't know who Jay Triano is, but
Jay Triano was a coach for a little bit.
Apparently, he's done 4 years of head coaching in the NBA. Then you got some Serbians that I don't know about.
Oh,
Igor Kokoskov.
Igor Kokoshkov, the guy who we thought the guy whose team didn't pick Luka Doncic, even though they had the second pick, and that was his coach.
And then the Darko Rajakovic.
Darko Radjakovic. Yeah, I think so.
And then you get Steve Kerr. You know,
Military. Yeah,
his
military
dad's
brat.
Lebanese citizen. Eddie Gottlieb was born in Russia.
Yeah, Eddie Gottlieb's old as nuts.
Yeah, and then Kiki
Eddie Gottlieb
Van de Wey, born in West Germany to Canadian father and American mother.
Right, Kiki was
he had one season.
Forgot about that.
Okay, there you go. There's your and now Jordi Fernandez.
Well, good. I mean, it's good. It's good to see this. I mean, we're gonna.
No, I mean the fact that there hasn't been a Spanish coach yet is probably not great, especially considering how good some of those teams are.
And how much we fucking retread coaches. Like we've got European guys that I think at least deserve a chance. We got guys who have decorated 20-year careers. No one wants to give them a chance. Like I get the English barrier. I get that our players are much different than European players. I understand dealing with NBA
but
players.
It's like, but do you want to continue doing that, or do you want to maybe open up the culture in the game a little bit so that the players we can find new?
It's going to take players saying yes to it, and Giannis has just given a ringing endorsement of this guy. I forget his name, but it just won another a title in Europe. That's a big deal.
Is that his like brother's like fifth tier team?
No, I think Kostas is on a good team actually. I can't remember.
One of them's not on a very good team, and he was there talking about that.
Let's see, where's Kostas? Kostas is in the Greek league. Yeah, damn, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's in Panathinaikos. Yeah, that's the best team in Europe. That's right, they are Greek. Panathinaikos. Yeah, that's the best. That's like one of the most storied franchises there. Dominique Wilkins even played.
I think it's his other brother,
Alex.
But not worth.
Yeah. No, you're fair. Dude, honestly, I just laughed because I remember one point people were telling me Alex Antetokounmpo was going to be the greatest player of all time.
A lot of kids.
Oh, yeah, it's probably him. Betsef LKL. Yeah, he plays for kind of a mad team. It's a good league, but he plays for a bad team. Anyway, that's pretty much the off-season stuff. I was going to get you a couple of notes here so that we can get introduced to the next part of the stuff, and then we're done. There's a few things we just want to kind of get everybody quickly updated on. If you haven't heard, there's a giant race war going on between and David Stern couldn't be happier.
Oh, God.
It's very normal what's happening in the W on the court. It's very abnormal what's happening off the court, but it's kind of good and bad for the W depending on how you look at it. I'm going to take the positives from it. No, Caitlin Clark isn't being singled out because she's white. No,
she's being singled out because everyone's talking about her.
Yes, more than anything. But also you could argue, is everyone talking about her because she's a really good white player? That part I would have a conversation about. But that's not the point, and we're not going to give this any more time than everyone else is giving because you know it's happening. I just had to mention it. It's obviously.
I should have brought the video of her walking in and whatever the hell that fashion. Oh man, I'll have to show
basketball players in fashion, my friend. They're truly unique. The Connecticut Sun are currently the best team in the WNBA. The defensive stalwarts are playing their asses off. They've loaded up. They're looking pretty damn good. The Liberty are looking just as good. Vandersloot's not playing with them right now, and they're still winning games. So I think that's honestly, as much as Caitlin Clark is bringing a lot of positivity to the W, there is not a person happier to see her than Sabrina Ionescu, because now no more do people care about Sabrina's life. She is no longer the white girl that everyone overhypes and puts a target on their back. That is long gone, and she's playing some of her best basketball. So I'm just really happy for her, if anything. Oh yeah, she looks like a roll of quarters.
Yeah,
yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. Nafisa Collier and Asia Wilson are battling for the MVP right now. Nafisa is the best player on the Minnesota Lynx. The Minnesota Lynx look like just as good as where they were. They started off pretty poor last year and then just came out halfway through the season like fucking wildfire. We're one of the best teams. They still are. The two-time defending champions are not looking so good. I think they're 6-6, maybe something changed last night. But that is because Chelsea Gray, who essentially isn't their second best player, in my opinion, the heart and soul of their team, is not playing. But like I said, Asia Wilson is ascended to the best player in WNBA status by quite a large margin. So it's keeping them afloat for now. Probably all they'll need. Seattle, probably the most famous franchise in the W, has reloaded their team. Jewel Lloyd, Jewel Lloyd has been one of their best players for quite some time. Last year it was a very sad experience to watch the team. This year they've added Skylar Diggins-Smith, one of the more talented scorers in the W, who was gone for maternity leave last year, and Nneka Agumake, who was probably the best defensive player in basketball last year.
It's not a great place to be stuck when you're speaking. What was he saying?
And so that's been kind of fun. That's where I've buried the lead for us Dallas fans. Not so great for the Dallas Wings.
Never really is.
It wasn't supposed to be that way. Looked like we had put together quite a team. But they might be cooked product this year. And maybe that's good long term. But Natasha Howard and Satu Sabali just have not played basketball this year. That's two of our best players. It's not ideal. Maddie Siegrist, we just lost her to a broken finger. She was our top pick last year, showing real promise next to Enrique this year. And Enrique, God love her, has just said, fuck it. I'm gonna keep shooting then. And she is, I think, I think she's leading the league in scoring at the moment, or is close to it. And told the
she's going full Kobe, huh?
Oh yeah, and she told Team USA not to even bother with her. She said she didn't want to go because she's not trying to change her game. Fuck that passing bullshit.
Fair enough.
So I think it might be the end of Enrique's time in Dallas. Trades in season don't happen a lot for the W. This could change this year for a lot of reasons.
Is that just because it's a shorter season, so it's just kind of
financial? There's also just not as much incentive. Yeah, there's just it doesn't work the same way as other leagues. So it's more like football, I think, where it just doesn't. You're just better off doing it in off season. Commissioner's Cup will be on the 25th. The Lynx and Liberty are likely to take that one on, and then there will be an extensive break for the Olympics. The final thing that we talk about today. The reason I'm wearing the red, white, and blue, I just want to give you guys a quick update before we get into that. The NBA draft is the 26th and 27th this year as well, so enjoy that. But for the most part, especially if you're only watching the men, you don't have basketball until early July, when qualifiers will start happening for both.
Do we have 3-on-3 this year?
Yes, there will be 3-on-3 as well, because that's part of the Olympic stuff. I don't know when all that starts, but I need to actually write that on my calendar too.
I don't even know who was playing in that.
Our 3-on-3 team for the women was Cam Brink, but Cam Brink just got injured. I don't know the severity of that yet. And then it was that Haley Van Lith girl, and then another person I forgot. Pretty solid WNBA player, though, pretty sure. So we'll see. And we've had some pretty good big 3 teams, or 3-on-3 teams, especially from the women's side.
Yeah, I was gonna say, are we even using NBA players in the men's side?
Jimmer, last time I checked, Jimmer was our best men's player. And he's actually killing that league, because that league is really built well for the Jimmer.
That's funny. Hey,
Oh,
glad he found something.
Space, bro. He operates well in space. It's just hard to get that space when you're going against NBA athletes. Group play will begin at the end of July. So the meat of the Olympics is in August. For the men's team, Kawhi is very unlikely to play, in my personal opinion. And it seems like Derek White will take his place when that is official. And for the Team USA women, we have 2 big conversations. One I just mentioned, that Enrique Agubawale told them, no, I'm good. Thank you.
Here's the names, at least most recent. Canyon Barry.
Oh, Brent Barry. Yeah, that's the legacy kid. Canyon Barry.
Jimmer Fredette, we got that one. Kareem Maddox.
I don't know who Kareem Maddox is, but Canyon Barry is
a former podcast producer and NPR host. The 34-year-old currently works part-time in the Timberwolves front office.
I see. That's cool.
And then someone named Dylan Travis.
Fair. Oh, okay. I mean, 3-on-3 is a pretty different game, so it definitely opens itself up to different players. And then for the Team USA women's, will the sponsors of the Olympics, NBC mostly, the broadcaster, not the sponsor necessarily, will they force a surprise injury to one of our Team USA women's players
To get Caitlyn out there.
so that Caitlin Clark has to be a part of this roster? I think it's going to happen, if I'm being honest. There's a lot of good candidates. I was actually about to pull up the team just
What was the
make sure
they
I have
said
it.
that they thought it would be a distraction if she didn't play enough minutes,
Yeah, because she won't, most likely.
but it isn't some more than zero.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all again, it's for the sponsorship stuff. And Pablo Torre had a great show with John Skipper and the dude who used to run Fox,
Yeah.
and they talked about this in a really good a capacity where there was like, it's a difficult decision to make here. The sponsors usually get some say in these things, but not this much say, and not at a team level when there's not qualifying to be on this team. This is a selection based, merit based thing. So it makes it a little bit more of a pain in the ass. So Nafisia Collar, like I said, she's probably going to, I mean, her and Asia are probably going to be MVP. So unless either are injured, they're going to be on the squad. Kalia Copper, that's the kind of, I mean, injury alone. Chelsea Gray's injured this season already. So there's your biggest candidate. If Chelsea's injury lingers or if, it gets worse and she pushes her chips more towards the Aces trying to win 3 in a row, there's your opportunity. I think Diana Taurasi, obviously with her age, is a chance, but I'm telling you right now, you're going to have to kill Diana Taurasi before she doesn't go to that.
But if you're talking about it being merit based, she shouldn't be in the top 12 players in the world.
But what's merit, right?
I mean,
is merit what are you doing right now? Or
yeah,
is merit what have you done all the time? Because when it comes to that, no one has more merit than her, right?
No, but yeah, I think it is a little more current in.
And DT's been still playing well. It's just she's not. You're right. It's not this level. But at the same time, I mean, fuck, if Carmelo wanted to unretire just to be on the bench of this squad, I'd be cool with it. I mean, I would for sentimental reasons. And that's kind of all it is here too, except for DT's going to force her way onto the court.
I want the top of the top. I want to dominate. Although I think we could probably run out.
I think the women's team has a much better chance. We could skip
our top 20 players and still dominate. So
I think that our women's
game.
If I had to put money on who's winning the gold, I would put both. I would think we're going to be just fine on both sides. But I would definitely
the odds would be so bad that you would still lose money somehow even if we did win.
Like Jaylen Brown posting on his story that no one believed in us when everyone was betting on the Mavericks. It's like, no, dog, that's just how you make money in gambling.
No one believed in the team that wins 64-18. Everyone believed in the 5th seed, whose third best player was PJ Washington.
Yeah, that's what I appreciate about Jaylen Brown. And
he's not the only one, because even Mike Breen, he even said that anything is possible himself. It's like, what are you talking about? Anything is possible.
Well, yeah,
they have one of the best constructed rosters in the NBA.
I've been watching them fumble on themselves for about half a decade, so I was kind of at that point too. If the Mavericks
won, you could say anything is possible.
I was kind of at that point too.
Team that didn't make the playoffs the year before, at least.
Especially with Jalen and Jason, I was just like, do y'all not fuck with each other? Because like, you're confusing me. And then they're just like, no, you just weren't patient enough. I guess
they're also still very young.
But now you have a title, so now I'm always wrong in that conversation. It's fine, but it's just one of those things where I'm like, But yeah, I mean, they were the favorites. They played well. Jaylen Brown's a funny guy. I'm very excited for his. I just want to finish by glowing a little bit more about Jaylen, because as much as we get frustrated with the modern athlete, how much they make, who they are, what they're about, Jaylen Brown, through every step of his entire life, has been an absolutely impeccable representation of the old school athlete. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that, especially not from the people who demand it, right? Because they're not going to look at Jaylen Brown. They're going to look at Jaylen Brown and they're going to stereotype Jaylen Brown. They're not even giving him the chance to be who he really is. but that man is an incredibly important player. He's an incredibly well-played player. He's done an amazing job at changing his entire career trajectory from where it really kind of was when it started. Not that it was off that bad of a path, but I mean, he really has developed in skill in a way that most guys don't. Like, don't actually put this much effort into their craft. And then off the court, there is very few NBA players who put their money where their mouth is like he does. Like, he is in the community. He is not just tax write-off guy. He's not just, I promise school. Sorry, LeBron, I had to do it. He's out here doing real shit, and I'm honestly very proud of him. And I've always said this, and now that he's a champion, it makes me even more excited. I genuinely hope that when he retires, he takes the mantle that Bill Bradley left. You guys, as NBA players, have such incredible opportunities to learn about the world, to meet all kinds of people from all walks of life. And most of the time, you experience a very unique version of life as an adolescent. Going into politics isn't for everybody. Jaylen Brown, I couldn't recommend it more. Like, I couldn't be more excited for the future of Jaylen Brown, because I do think that he's one of those guys that we need on that side, because we're superficial Americans now. We need guys we recognize. We you know what I mean? We need these things. Like, look at Colin Allred in Texas. He might actually be able to win as a Democrat in Texas because he played football. And he's done some other policy stuff that might
Didn't
flip
quite
voters.
work for Herschel, but
It didn't work for Herschel because of different reasons. But you know what I mean? It is the same battle, just the opposite way. Either way, I'm very excited for Jaylen Brown, and so I finished by glowing about him one last time, because I think that it's important that, as much as we shit on people, as much as we get frustrated on some of the ways that guys get paid and how they act, like LaMelo Ball out here driving like a GTA character, we have Jaylen Brown. Please remember, we have Jaylen Brown. Give him the time of day. Give him the publicity that you give these idiots. You know what I mean? So that's my soapbox.
love it.
All right.
Yeah, that's probably gonna be our most basketball dominated episode for a few months now. So I hope you
Facts.
enjoyed it.
We will keep it all very brief moving forward.
Dog days of summer coming up. MLB winding down, or at least into the playoffs before football starts. So yeah, it's been fun. Happy Juneteenth. Hopefully we might see or hear something from Caesar next week. And yeah, talk to you later.
Deuces. Happy holidays, folks.
This is Past the Rock.